special workshop this evening, Crestview City Council. And at this point, I would like Mr. Cox to lead some Pledge of Allegiance. You all stand, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, if you would please shut off any electronic devices you have. And council members, if you would sign in, please. Are we working there, Madam Clerk? Yeah. Don't echo.
That's just information for next for the regular.
Oh, okay.
I'm good. Martha?
Shannon, would you sign in again?
Oh,
You didn't take.
Yeah.
Is this gum?
Oh, you're not gonna drink it? Oh, I didn't know that.
I need one yellow.
thank you. I never see this little button in here.
Okay, being noted that we have a quorum, we have one council member absent, and the meeting is now called to order. I'll ask if anybody has any changes to the agenda that I need to know about. I didn't think so. So at this point, if there's anybody in the audience who would like to address the city council on the one item, the two items we have on the workshop tonight, and that is the sales tax projects and review of the charter review committee recommendations. Anybody in the audience like to address us? All right, we're going to move on to discussion consensus of the sales tax projects by our city clerk.
I thought that we would have the November 13th meeting to actually vote on these, and then the county decided they'd have their workshop tomorrow to discuss moving forward with the half-cent sales tax referendum. What I'm looking for is, and Wayne and the police chief and I were working on some projects that meet the criteria for what the county is looking for, which is infrastructure, general fund infrastructure, public safety, public facilities, and those type of items. You cannot use the half-cent sales tax for utility infrastructure projects. So Wayne went through this and worked on it. This is by no means carved in stone of what we can do. Obviously, since these if we get what we're expecting in the sales tax, we're talking about $1 million to $1.3 million to $1.5 million over a year for a 5-year period. So obviously, that's not going to fund $25 million in projects. But what the county is looking for and what the county administrative board is looking for to take to his board tomorrow is a list of projects that we believe could be done with the half-cent sales tax so that they can go forward, move forward, and promote it with find somebody to promote it. The county can't promote it, city can't promote it. So that they know that we're on track and we have the right type of projects to do the sales tax. So basically, all I'm looking for from you guys is yep, we like these projects, send them on, and I'll send them to the county, and they'll discuss them and move forward.
Did everybody have an opportunity to look at them? I looked at them, but I didn't bring my copy with me, so.
There's that extra one.
Nobody got the.
And I was hoping that we'd be able to actually vote on them, but in
Yeah,
talking
we
to them,
can't
all
do
they
that.
need is a consensus.
Mr. Hayes has a question or a comment.
No, just a comment. This is just for transparency. If we could just go down the items, what we have on our paper, since the public, I don't think has that. If you don't mind, Madam Clerk. Is that all right, Mr. President?
Yeah, I think that would be good. We don't have a slide, do we?
No.
Over there.
Basically, what we're looking at, I have a copy of these for the press. Basically and these are estimations in costs. We have enlarge the turn radius at Industrial Drive and Highway 90 for $32,000. Crestview Corners Access Road for $150,000. We have 2 of the 5 easements needed for that. Redstone Avenue widening, State Road 85 to Brookmead, roundabout construction at Redstone Brookmead intersection. Total cost on that is about $899,000. Medcrest to Dugan Connector Road, total cost $1.9 million. Arena Road paving, Phase 1 is $2.1 million. Arena Road paving, Phase 2 is $1.4 million. Arena Road paving, Phase 3 is $3.5 million. Dugan Avenue extension to Arena Road is $2.1 million. The gun firing range, which we have the property, it's an estimated that it's gonna cost about $100,000 to get that up and running. That falls under the public safety aspect of this sales tax referendum. Raspberry Road extension, city-county project, $9 million. Sports complex, including land, county school board project, approximately $4 million. And environmental center upgrades, approximately $250,000. So total, we're looking at about $25,500,000 in projects. Obviously, the sales tax isn't going to do that. But once, hopefully, the sales tax passes, and it won't come into, if it passes, when it passes, it won't go into effect till January of 18. So we won't get the full amount of money for the fiscal year of 2018-19. We'll only get 3/4 of it. But we'll know, depending on when they do the referendum, if they do it in April like they're planning, we'll know when we start the budget next year of how much money we're gonna get and which projects we can go after as far as capital projects for the sales tax next year.
That's it.
Mr. Fairclough, go ahead.
Is this in a priority order, or should we prioritize?
This is just to let the county know what we're looking at over the next 5 to 10 years, because they're looking at a 5-year with a possible 10-year, but that's up to them about how long they're gonna do it for.
Okay.
It's just to show that we have projects in mind, we have projects planned, this is what we wanna do to go forward.
What did you say our expected revenue would be?
Between $1.3 and $1.75 million a year, depending on the split.
And what's the sunset on that?
5 years
5 years?
with the possibility of extension. So
I would
obviously,
just- I would just like to make sure people understand, those listening out in the internet land, the sales tax proposal is exactly that. The county commissioners don't pass that. If they want to go forward to that, they do a referendum, and the people vote on whether they want to accept that increase or not.
Right, they have to do an ordinance and do it, they're planning on, at this point, they were a mail-out referendum, as long as they're planning on moving forward with it. A mail-out ballot for the referendum like the school board is, so. If it goes forward, it has to pass, and then we can, when we find out if we get the money, then we can prioritize the project. This is simply to let them know we're serious about it, here's our project.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Cox, go ahead.
I'm solidly for this. And one note, correct me if I misspeak, the municipalities, the funds distribution, percentage-wise, population is the largest,
That's still up in the
criteria.
air. That is, there's a discussion of doing it based on the discretionary sales tax breakdown, which is state government driven. There's also the possibility that it may be negotiated between the League of Cities and the county to do it based on the gas tax, which for us, it would affect us about $200,000 or $300,000, but not a major amount. That's not been determined yet, how the split would do.
Okay.
Mr. President, if I might.
Yes, go
add,
ahead, Mr. Daly.
And we're not gonna discuss it, but the information I gave you tonight, I'll show you what the cities are, an option that they're looking at, with the percentage broken down by population, exact population. It's in that handout I gave you, but it's not for discussion tonight.
There's several different factors out there. There's a state driven, there's a population driven, and then there's a gas tax driven, so.
Okay, Madam Clerk, thank you.
All I need is a,
Oh, yeah, I think you got it from everybody.
okay.
That's good. We're now going to move on to discussion of the Charter Review Committee recommendations, and I'm going to call on Growth Management Director, our Executive Assistant here to, and at the same time, I would like Mr. Connor to come up to the podium also, and I'll tell you why, because we're not going to go through and read 12 pages. We're all capable of reading. We've all had it for a while. But what we need to do is go through each page and see if we have any comments or questions And some of the questions I have, I'd want to direct at the chairman. So if you could be up there with Teresa, I'd appreciate that. You can stand aside, but she doesn't bite.
I don't bite at all.
Yeah, she doesn't bite. So anyway, gentlemen, looking at, the first page and the last page is kind of simplistic, definitions almost. So we really have about 10 pages to cover, but I'm not trying to rush everybody, but does anybody have any comments and or questions on page 1? I didn't think so, that's pretty simple. Go on to page 2, I'm sure we'll have something. Yes, Mr. Peerclough.
The second line from the top, it says, well, starting at the middle of the top line, all council members shall be elected by votes cast citywide. Would that be better stated, votes cast by the city electorate?
I think what he's getting at, when you say citywide, you're talking about territory, which would
Yes, sir.
would include unincorporated voters. So I think he's just saying city electorate would mean only people registered in the city, isn't that what this
Well,
is?
it says citywide, it doesn't say anything about
I
being
know,
a
that's what I'm
registered
saying.
voter.
That's the distinction you're making.
Yes.
This was a holdover from the previous version, so if you would like that verbiage to be changed, we can do that.
Well, I just think it would better state who gets to vote.
I think it's more definitive.
Yes,
If
sir, I
someone
do
is-
too. I
Someone
do
lives in the
too.
county and say, well, I'm part of citywide,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't get to vote in the city election.
Right. We concentrated on changing certain items, but for the most part, if we didn't touch into the actual verbiage, we didn't adjust it.
Well, I've been
As
reading,
it had already been through legal, so, but yes, sir, I think this is much better, much clearer.
Any other questions, comments on page 2?
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Owen.
The, in the last, number 1, under the powers of the mayor, the last part of that says to sign all contracts attested to by the city clerk. I think the mayor signs, but the clerk attests his signature, so I would suggest that that be changed to say to sign all contracts the city enters into on behalf of the city.
Did you get that?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Mhm.
Okay.
And it's better. Like I say, we didn't,
No, that's fine, that's why
we
we're
didn't
here.
spend it, that's why we're here, so.
That's right.
I do agree with this. Yes, it makes it much clearer.
Any more on page 2? Okay, I do. As you know, well, first of all, I want again to commend y'all for what you did on the committee, because we really gave you one directive, recommend a different form of government. And you kind of went beyond that and went into the council, into the charter and stuff, and it turned out to be a good thing. I think y'all did, you helped us as beneficial because we have some framework to work from now, so that's good. But I purposely didn't attend the meetings only because I had expressed my opinion before in public about certain things, and I didn't want to appear as trying to unduly influence anybody, so I stayed away from the meetings, but I did read the minutes. And minutes can't capture everything, right? You agree with that? So the question I have is, at any time during your meetings, did you discuss expanding the city council from 5 to 7 members like some of our sister cities do?
There was a discussion of that, and we just discussed that somewhat, but the committee felt like we will hold it as it is, and if sometimes in the future, the city council, or when it goes through your sausage-making process, which we're trying to do here tonight, to clarify that, but there was some discussion, but no real
Okay.
emphasis or concern.
I just wanted, I didn't see it in the
No,
minutes.
No real
Okay.
concern of the committee.
The other question I had, again, that I don't see in the minutes, was there any discussion about having term limits on elected officials?
No, sir.
No discussion at all?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have on that
Yes, sir.
page. Moving to page 3, comments, questions? Yes, Mr. Fairclough.
Section, parentheses 3 at the top, says to preside over at all the meetings. Couldn't you just leave out at?
So stricken.
To preside over all meetings of the city council with authority to participate in discussions, but without power to vote is the way the sentence would read. I think, aren't we still talking about the mayor?
Yes, sir, that's the
All
mayor.
right. Says he is to preside over all those meetings. Does that mean we won't have a council president?
What you have is a pro tem, is a council pro tem, or mayor pro tem, who would fill in for the mayor to, in his absence.
No, I'm saying in lieu of a president, the mayor will be over all, presiding over all the meetings
That's correct.
instead of a president.
That's correct.
And then instead of a vice president, you'll have a mayor pro temp. Comments, questions? Page 3.
There's one thing y'all have to keep in your mind on this mayor pro tem is since he's gonna be a voting member of the council, he's not gonna be able to discuss anything that's coming before the council outside of his public.
Sure, absolutely. Because he's going to retain his rights. And that brings me to an issue that I don't really want to bring up. Mr. Hawley, you're going to have to weigh in on this, but it kind of confuses me a little bit. What we have in here, it says that the mayor is going to preside over all meetings without the power to vote, which means you can't even break a tie like in some of our other cities. And I don't have any problem with that because the benefit of that should be that the mayor then is not part of the voting process
That's
and
correct.
therefore can
You'd have a lot
discuss
of discussion.
with council members without violating public meeting law and all kind of stuff. However, when you get down to, he can't vote, but he can veto anything that the council votes on. That sounds to me like a big vote. We could have a 5-0 vote, and then the mayor can come down and veto it. And so wouldn't, let me finish on it, because where I'm going with this, wouldn't that prohibit any council member from the ability to speak to him where he has the authority to nullify our vote?
Well, if he vetoes it, if the city council comes back with a,
Well, I understand we can override the veto.
Majority.
I'm not concerned about the process. I'm concerned about his role. If he can veto what we do here, are we going to be allowed to speak to him where we could be accused of influencing his veto or non-veto?
It's only,
Mr. Hawley?
doesn't he have veto?
If we know that he can nullify our vote,
he currently has that authority.
I know,
That authority
Well, it's
now.
been that
I know he
way.
does. That doesn't mean what we're doing
Yeah.
is correct.
I don't think that the fact that he vetoes is gonna keep you from talking to him, but, that's always been the procedure we followed here, but
Mr. President,
I want just Mr. Hawley to finish. You don't see any conflict with that? Well, I hope I'm wrong.
well, it only applies to ordinances, it doesn't apply to anything else that you do. And that's been the procedure, I haven't researched it, but that's been the procedure as long as I can remember. But it's good to council, it may not be right, but that's what's been done for.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I want to be sure, we have it right in the new charter. It just seems to me, and again, I'm restating what I said before. It sounds to me like he has a big vote, if he can veto it. And if he has any vote over what we do, I don't see how we could communicate with him. Mr. Fairclough, you had a question?
That's something that'd be covered under the regulations as far as sunshine law, and I'll go through that book on that. since I got
If you would, I'd
it.
appreciate that. Okay, Mr. Hawley, thank you. Ms. Fairclough, you had a question, comment?
well, first of all, I think we would have a workshop to discuss his veto, and then the council could override his veto.
Oh, yeah. I'm not concerned about the process. I know that we can override the veto. What I'm concerned about is, are we going to have access to an individual who can negate our votes?
No more than we have access now.
I know,
But we-
but just because
that's-
we've been doing that way doesn't automatically make it
I know, but
correct.
that's why we would have a workshop. We could all discuss it with him in a workshop.
Right, but then you couldn't any other place.
No,
which we can now.
yes.
Okay, that's all I'm getting at. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Cox.
That's process in the current charter. The issue just really hasn't come about in recent,
I know,
Years,
that's
but
why
it-
I'm bringing it
but
up, because
it's-
we're
and-
developing a new charter.
and that's a good question.
I think there'll be something
Good
in this sunshine law comments about that.
Okay, we'll leave it, Mr. Holly will research that. Actually, I hope I'm wrong, because
Yeah.
I like what we do right now. Just want to make sure it's right.
Yeah, it's a concern.
Okay, can we move on to page 4? Questions, comments, page 4? All right, up to me again. Again, Mr. Conn, I'm going to address you because you are the chair. We still list under 4.02 the council as being 3 precincts and 1 and 2 at large. Did we ever, was there any discussion on going to all at-large members, again, like our fellow sisters, our sister
Yes,
cities?
there was discussion about that. And it goes back to the current charter. Back in when the 60s, when this document was adopted, there was a lot of, as it relates to civil rights issues. And that's when our new charter come into being, the new charter at that time,
Mhm.
1963, 1964. The intent of that was to provide Southwest Crestview, and we discussed this at length, with the ability to have a seat on the city council. Southwest Crestview, majority over this area. Keep in mind, the city of Crestview at that time was 6,000 or 7,000 people at
Sure.
the max. It's grown all over. Southwest Crestview, as Mr. Hayes grew up, is not the same as Southwest Crestview because all the area from Highway 90 west of Main Street all the way down to Country View and all those areas that have been annexed into the city. But our intent and our board felt like if we keep the districts like that, that would be a better opportunity for, I'm gonna use lack of a better word, to continue, the minority gets a better chance of a vote. And it has been ever since that time, a minority has held the position, and that's where it goes back to. And we had a lot of discussion, of that.
Okay, but
And the
I
committee
just want
felt
to see
like-
if you had, because I didn't see the minutes
Yeah,
of
the-
discussion.
Yeah, and the committee.
I mean, I
felt-
see the problems with it. You could ostensibly end up with 5 people in one section of town and not have fair representation. I just wonder if it had been discussed.
Yes, sir.
This provision may protect you against a lawsuit for discrimination if you got it where every time it's city-wide, you never have a minority elected. So,
Understand, I see the problems with it. I just wanted to know if it had been discussed, that's all.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We discussed that.
Thank you. Mr. Cox, you had a question, comment?
Yes, if I can make a point on the districts, and I see Councilman Witten's point, and also the points of maintaining the way we're set up on that with the districts and 2 at large. However, one point is specifically District 2, population-wise, has increased much more than 1 or 3. So according to our existing charter, we're overdue to reanalyze the proportion on that.
What we tried to do with this committee is shrink the charter down. In the previous document that we were working from, that was included in it. Taking the advice of the supervisor of election and all of our experts, if you will, that appeared, is keep the charter small. Reduce the size of it to keep the title down so it's not confusing to the voters. And we tried everything we could to put what needed to be in the charter and leave those questions that you're asking now about changing the districts to ordinance, to to a.
Good. That's a good answer.
To be adopted by ordinance.
And I commend you for what you did. I just had that question on that.
Does that answer mean,
I
look at it for a population, a redistribution?
That's
on-
correct.
To make it equal sizes again? Because currently it's not.
We had a lot of discussion about the
I'm not
districts.
sure you can amend the charter by ordinance unless people
No,
vote.
no,
See,
that
that's
wasn't
what I'm-
it. That wasn't,
That's going to stay that way unless you get it approved by
the
people
districts.
again.
But that was for a charter review committee, be summoned by the council after this charter to review it,
And relook
and
at it.
every so often to make recommendations to the council to change districts, redraw the lines, if you will, or add more. But that was, what we were trying to do is keep this charter simple and not get into additional council members, and also that you summons your charter review committee at a later date as you see fit to draw your district lines or to add additional.
Mr. President, I
Go ahead,
think
Mr. Noy.
I think the existing charter draws out where these districts are. And I think you're gonna need to, if you're gonna change them, do it before you adopt this thing and draw them out in this thing. So you'll have a description of where the district is.
And that was a discussion, that do we try to redraw the lines in this proposal to the city council, or to try to get the charter passed and make minor adjustments to the charter? And you would have, the big issue on this charter is a city manager form of government or a strong mayor form of government. Those were kind of the choices that we worked on. It was the recommendation of the committee that you go with the manager form of government. That's what's been tried to be accomplished several times in the city, but we've had poor success having amendments or changes to the charter. So we tried to keep this proposal to you as simple as possible and not get into redrawing the lines or adding additional members to the council. We're trying to keep it as simple and clear to kind of go along with what you got, except the major change of a manager and not elected clerk.
I think that you're gonna need to have something in this charter saying where these districts are. Otherwise, you don't have anything.
Well, the charter now does define the districts.
I thought it
The existing charter defines districts.
On page 10, section 607, council precincts, it leaves the open question there. There was only one paragraph in there, and it says, "The boundaries of the 3 precincts shall remain the same as they exist prior to the approval of this charter by the electorate of the city until changed as provided herein." So that question there is for the board to facilitate the precincts, whether they're to be redetermined or adjusted prior to passage of the charter, or simply utilized as they are stated in the existing charter.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Fairclough.
If, of course, I understand this is just discussion, if we do see the need to redistrict the entire city to try to equalize population, then that would leave it open to discuss whether or not we need 2 more councilmen. Depending on how many people you want to divide the city into. By population, I'm saying, are we gonna stay with 3 districts and 2 at large, or should we go to 5 districts and 2 at large, or should we have 4 at large? That's just for discussion.
Every council member is elected by every voter. Just because you're representing 1, 2, 3, that doesn't really mean anything when it comes to an election. You don't represent just that district. You are elected by all all the voters of the city of Crestview, not just those that in District 1, 2, 3. You're elected by all the votes of all districts. District 1, 2, and 3 is elected just as from the electorate, just like the at-large. So every person casts a vote for every council member really at large. It's just the fact that 1, 2, and 3 needs to reside in that particular district, and the other two can, at-large district seats can come from anywhere in the city.
Personally, I think there's a need to have this kind of discussion in the future, but I think what we wanted to do was really get this process going, and then we can do a charter review. You recommended 5 years, maybe we could do it in 2 years. It doesn't have to be 5 years.
Whatever.
We could look at doing the districts or in the future. But at this point, I would like to see if we can go
You just
forward with
gonna need
this.
to keep in mind, if you, in the future, you decide to change the districts and they're set out in the charter, you're gonna have to do it in the procedure for a charter amendment.
We can do that. Yeah, Mr. Cox.
Yes, I didn't want to, I'm all for product you've produced here, and I didn't want to muddy the waters.
No.
But I did want to make the point that the District 2, population-wise, is way bigger than 1 or 3. And there is I don't have the copy with me, but there is a provision in the current charter that says when it gets out of whack that it should be reviewed. So at some point, that's going to need to be done.
What I'd like to do,
What-
Cal, I can't call on you right now. I can call you at the end, but this is a discussion really we need to have later on. We're not going to change districts tonight, so. Let's
But
move on to
it
page
doesn't
5.
change the voting power of any person that votes, because you vote for all 5.
Yep.
And at one time, that might have been a critical issue, but at this time,
No, you're right. If I have a problem, I have no issue with calling Commissioner Ketchel, even though she's not from my district. She's a county commissioner. I'll call any county commissioner, because they represent everybody, elected by everybody. Same kind of issue. Let's move on to page 5. Any questions, comments on page 5?
Page 5, right? Sure.
Mr. Hall, you have something?
No, I don't believe it.
I think your additions was in 5.
I think it must be on
Is
there.
that the change?
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Rickle.
Question for Mr. Connor. On page 5, parentheses B, 7B, vacancies. Did you take that as it is stated in the current charter? Or did y'all change that?
no, sir, that's pretty well, the way the current charter reads it.
Okay.
If a member resigns or passes away, the city council makes that appointment of that person to fill the unexpired term of that council member, and until the next election cycle, fill the unexpired term.
I have some on page 5.
Yes, Mr. Hawley.
No, page 6. I can't keep up with the pages. It's on page 6.
Well, 5.01 is not on page 5, although that's in section. Is that what you wanted to address, 501?
Yeah, it's on page 6.
Yeah, we haven't gotten, we'll get there in just a minute. Now we're on page 6.
Okay, you got a paper showing what I said on 5.01. It needs to be put in there as the compensation to be paid the city manager for his service, his or her or his services shall be set by the city council in the contract between the city manager and the city. That's normally the way you negotiate a contract with the city
Yeah.
manager.
That was
agreement on
the
what
intent
you're
of the
gonna pay.
committee. The city council would set the salary of those attorneys, the manager, and,
That was taken out.
okay.
Because it was said that it would be set by ordinance. And if you set it by ordinance, you're not gonna be negotiating.
No, I
And
mean
you
by
wanna negotiate with the city
negotiation.
manager and the city attorney, you always try to come to an agreement is what you're being paid. And likewise by the city clerk, although hers, she doesn't have a contract, but it would be set. Of
So
course,
we're
her-
saying-
Her salary is, unless you can't decrease it to her terms over with anyway, but you could increase it if you wanted to, but
You're saying, Mr. Hawley, this, what you wrote here needs to be added to it, is that what you're saying?
yes.
Okay.
To show, we took out that provision about it, so it set out, done by ordinance, because
Right.
we wanted to be where we could negotiate with them.
You got that, Teresa?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other comments, questions on page 6? Page 7. Anybody else besides me? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Davis.
Mr. President, as far as appointed city officials, and I don't know if this falls in that category or not, where would the administrative assistant to the council fit?
The administrative assistant would work for the city manager, just like public works director.
Well, not this one.
Oh,
It's not in the charter. It's down in Article 2, I think.
Okay.
So it's not in the charter. It's in Article 2, which
Okay.
describes all that.
Okay.
sorry, Mr.
Okay.
And I didn't mean to say that, but, yeah, this person works strictly for the council, doesn't work for the city manager.
Yeah,
On page 7, there needs to be, the same thing needs to be added about the attorney's compensation and the compensation of the city clerk under the
So noted.
You got it? Okay. The, this is just a comment, really, it's not a question, because where it says that the city clerk shall serve at the pleasure of the city council and whose duties and responsibilities are provided. I noticed in a minute, there was quite a bit of discussion whether the city clerk should work under the city manager or the city council. And I'm glad y'all decided the city council, because that's the way it should be, but there was a lot of discussion on that.
yeah, it was.
That's just a comment.
Yes, sir.
There was a lot of discussion on that. Okay, page 8. Want to review?
I got you.
You got it? Page 8, comments, questions? All right, page 9. I'm zipping right through this puppy. Anybody besides me on page 9? Okay, let me go back here. 602B, qualifying fee. Each candidate shall pay to the qualifying officer a qualifying fee in the amount is set forth by city ordinance, as well as whatever the Florida state law says. Do we have a qualifying fee at the city level? I know we have one that we pay to the supervisor elections, and I thought that was the only fee we pay.
It's added into that. It's a $50 flat fee.
And that's a supervisor election. They goes to the state election.
No, there's a part of that fee that you pay when you register to be elected. Part of that comes back to the state.
Really? $5? No, I'm just kidding.
$4 and something like that.
I'm not sure which
Okay.
one. There's part of it that goes to them, and there's a flat fee, and then
Should be
then
$10.
10% of the salary.
$10?
Okay, I didn't know the city got any of that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
it might be $10. to
Mr.
get.
President, I think it's $10. I had to pay $60.
Yeah, me too.
That's because you were late.
I don't like
I don't know why you had to pay $60.
qualifying
It's
fee.
highly likely.
Okay, the other question now, I know you weren't rewriting the whole charter, but one thing that's left out in the election is, what are we gonna do in case of a tie? The old charter says that, the city council will take a vote on that. I didn't see it in here where, what happens if we have a tie for the mayor or a city council member?
It was never discussed.
But we need to have it in here.
If there's,
If I can, that's usually handled by the supervisor of elections. If
No,
there's
no,
a-
each city determines how they're gonna break that tie. So, some people cut the card, some people flip a coin. We should determine that at the city level. And we had it in the old charter. It says city council will make determination. And I think that's probably the way it should be now, if we could add that back in,
May
Okay,
change
so
state
include it in, okay?
and check state statutes.
in case of a tie.
that wasn't a topic of discussion. We were not running for office,
And
so.
it's probably not gonna happen. Okay, is that it for 9? Page 10. Any questions, comments on page 10? Page 11? And finally, page 12. Again, I'd like to thank you all for what you did, because it was an awesome undertaking, and that's why we had the workshop today, in order to look at anything we wanted to tweak. And I think we got some good comments going here. Anything you all like to say? Anything else you want to say about the charter? Teresa, you can get the floor if you'd like it. Okay?
They did
No,
a
sir.
great job.
What we tried to do is follow your chart, or give what we were, our job responsibility to get it back on time. And
And you did that.
what we did is come up with something we felt like is much better than what you're living by today, and using as your guides. We felt pretty comfortable. We had some heavy discussions about a lot of those things, and I would suggest that if there's any question or concerns from anyone, Mr. Whitten apparently has read all the minutes of all the meetings, and that is a good summary of that committee's product, is the minutes of those meetings. And they are well prepared. It takes out a lot of the clutter. And where we got off track occasionally from time to time, we have to come back to what our mission statement was. So we enjoyed, everyone on the committee enjoyed their assignment.
I noticed that in the minutes. Every now and then, someone would read the mission statement. Come on, guys.
Yeah, we
Get back
have to
on
bring them back.
Yeah, that's right.
I get someone else to read the mission statement and bring us back, because I didn't want to offend anyone by, say we're drifting off target. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Whitten.
so much.
President.
Yes, Mr. Hayes, you.
I just like to say, I like to thank Mr. Connors and the committee. I watch it, so I know what was going on, because they streamed it. They not the first part, but later on they streamed it, and I like to appreciate, compliment Mr. Connors for when they were going way out there in left field. He had them. Well, let's read the mission statement, and brought them back in line. But it was a good discussion. I think you did a great job. I like it.
Well, I appreciate those comments, and I'm sure the committee does too. And Ken sent this out live also, and the comments that he got, he can make his own comments, but what he related to us, it says, why aren't they talking about traffic on 85? Why aren't they talking about more
I saw that.
quality businesses coming to town? So that's what the people that were viewing at the time, that was their concern, that we were not addressing those issues that's related to city council business.
Yeah, you saw that.
But thank you for your comments. Thanks
Thank you.
for the invitation to come in and have a chance to speak.
What we need to do now, gentlemen, thank you. What we need to do now is decide where we're going next. Teresa, you have all the hard changes that you're gonna make based on what Mr. Hawley gave you.
Yes, sir, I
and,
do.
a couple things that Mr. Faircloth gave you.
Yes, sir, I have them
And,
marked.
And so at the next meeting, we should have a final product that we can actually take a vote on. Is that,
So you do
makes
want
sense.
me to present it in ordinance form, correct?
is that how it would be done, the ordinance to accept the charter to put out to the people?
You know, you can enter an ordinance, you should be in a position to set any ordinance when the election's gonna be. Normally, that's what's been done in the past, I think.
I wonder, do y'all want to refer to whether it's going to be a mail ballot, or is it going, a mail-out ballot, or is it going to be just a regular referendum? That may be something y'all want to discuss at this point, since you're in a workshop.
Well, there are two other things that could change is the veto, if we have anything on that.
Right.
And
You're gonna
the
bring
other
that
one
back
is
to
that
us.
there's, I don't know where there's any state law in reference to breaking ties or not that would apply to the city, but that's something that needs to be checked.
I look at, I've been to Fort Walton Beach and Destin, and I see the role of their mayor. And he chairs the meetings, and he can break a vote, but because of that, they can't communicate with him. But he doesn't have the power to veto. And that's why I'm saying, are we out of sync? I just want you to look at that and determine that, if you would. Yes, Doug?
As far as the mail-out ballots, I'm just curious, how many return mail do we get every month or every quarter or every year, for that matter?
I don't know that
from
we ever
the-
did a
from the-
mail out.
From the
recently.
water bills and stuff.
Water bills, about 1 to 2%.
If you're gonna do it by mail-out ballots, you're gonna need to
The
discuss this with
the supervisor election,
Supervisor,
he
about how we
actually
go about
met
that.
with us and discussed that. That was one of the discussions as the process of what it would be and how to do that. If it's so desired by the council, we will bring that back and elaborate for you. He seemed to think that that would be the best option in order to get response back.
I think so too, because we haven't done real well and
Right.
It shouldn't take
Last
much to
year.
exceed what we've been getting.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't take much.
I'm just wondering if it's gonna be too soon to vote on it until we check these things out.
Well, we need to, we need to clarify all of this, and will you have that prior to the next meeting? Is that enough time? We're only looking at
The 13th
nearly 2
November.
weeks, yeah, the 13th.
Couple weeks.
Yeah, but you're talking about the manner of election, what you gonna do.
Well, that's what they need to discuss
I
here.
talked to Mr. Lux a week or so ago, and he told me that he would not be able to prepare any kind of referendum for us until at least August of next year,
Yes, sir.
because of the ones he's doing for the school board, the ones he's
Mm-hmm.
doing for the county, and he has to have so many days before that,
Mm-hmm.
conduct it, so many days after that, and then the next one, and so we'd be third in line if we grab it right away, and that'll be August of next year.
Mhm.
Anyway,
And I think, is it March of 2019 is the next voting cycle?
yeah,
Or is
for
it-
the city.
Next city election is March of 2019.
This could be on the primary election in August
Mhm.
instead of a mail-out.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that you gotta look, if you're gonna, I don't know, I am not familiar with a mail out, I know it's in the statute, but we've never done it anywhere I've been, but if you go in the regular route, you've gotta determine the title, the amount so many words you're allowed.
Yes, sir.
50
That's
title,
what-
75 in the summary, I think it is.
Yeah, Mr. Lux went through all that in depth with us.
And you have to publish a notice of referendum
Oh, yes.
twice, and it tells you when you gotta publish it.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Cox, I'll get you next, Ms. Hayes.
Yeah, breaking this down a little bit. One, when is the earliest conceivable date, with the clarifications mentioned, that this can get on the ballot? One, and two, costs.
all that. We had discussions of that in our workshops. Of course, they were generalized. I would think we would need to take a little bit and do some in-depth data gathering for y'all so that you've got some specifics. And we could actually present you a real-time calendar without having so many guesstimates in it. So I think maybe if we took the time to present the data before you, we could bring it forth either in the next meeting or in the next workshop so that you could discuss it. And that would give you, ample time for us to provide true data and for y'all to have to look over it and decide.
I think I've seen it before, that the veto power does mean that you can't talk to the mayor. I think I've seen that before, but I want to go through the sunshine provision.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Hayes.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. And one thing that we have to take in consideration, to me, it's a big factor. I think it's the main thing of whichever way we go. The education of the voting public.
Oh, yeah.
There has to be ample time to whatever way we go that the public is educated on what's going on, why it's going on, or why it's not going on. From previous, in my opinion, this is a lot better than the previous one that failed, or might have, I don't know. Didn't matter what happened anyway because it wasn't followed, but all the regulations weren't followed to have it a proper ballot. But that's one of the main things that I see on this is educating the public, other than that 3.8%. In my opinion, if you don't educate the public, you're gonna have a 3.9%. Maybe a 4%. But is that representative of our city? If we're making a major change to our charter, I think all the citizens in Crestview that are voting should vote on it, have a vote on it one way or other. It affects them, maybe not directly, but indirectly, it affects all the voting public as well as all the citizens. So that's one of the main things, and it's not, people might think, so we can get a clear understanding, it's not the council's job to go out, in my opinion, maybe it's legal, maybe say you can do it, and promote the charter. We're gonna tell how we stand on it when we vote, so everybody will know what we think about it. But as far as us getting out and promoting, I know we can't put dollars towards it. Am I right, council? We can't put 1 penny towards for us advertising this one way or the other, so the citizens might think we can advertise. I just wanted to get out that we can't put 1 penny of your money towards advertising, because you might be against what we decide to go, and we spending your money for that. I would be unhappy with you too. So I just want to make sure that we get that out.
Mr. President,
Yes,
there's
Mr.
one other consideration. Do you want to separate it out and have separate votes on city manager and other things, so that some of them pass and some of them don't?
We'll vote on that at the meeting, but absolutely, I think we learned from the last time, and we learned from Fort Walton Beach, that that's the best way to do it. If we're gonna have two changes and have two separate statements, not combine them together, because then if you're opposed to one, you vote against both of them. So, yeah, we learned that lesson.
Now, you get some, the supervisor can help you with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very informative on that. I think rather than trying to do as rapidly as we possibly can, let's take a careful track, gather our data, make sure it's set in everybody's mind as what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and what's expected. I think that would be a more prudent way rather than trying to expedite passage and then realize that we have passed something that.
We're taking our time. If we can't do it until next August, we're not speeding anything up. We'll be taking our time.
Mr. President,
Yes,
I'm sorry I missed my note when we went to page 7. May I
sure, I'll
go back?
gauge you in that.
Discussing the city manager's job, it didn't say whether or not he would have the power to to hire or fire any city employee. Is that not in there because he doesn't, or is it not in there because it was
It's in there someplace.
Mr. Chairman?
I thought it was in there.
Just one
Let's see.
second, Mr. Conlon. It is in here though, right?
I'm
I'm pretty sure I saw that.
pretty
didn't-
sure I saw
Because it
it.
says where the council members can interfere in the hiring and firing of the city manager.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Conlon, come on up. He seems to know exactly where it might be.
Mr. Chairman, with the new charter, we're proposing a little different alignment of department heads, and we are recommend with the flow chart, if you will, relating to authority, that a human service director.
HR?
HR person would be there, also like we're recommending that the recreation be a separate and distinct, because there was a lot of discussion about that, but the HR director was trying to take the heat off of terminating, firing people, instead of placing that responsibility on the city council. And,
I'm still looking. I saw
and
something.
his responsibilities would be spelled out in his job description. How much authority you're going to allow that person to have. But the human resources person would take care of your personnel issues that.
Would that be addressed, or is it addressed in the ordinance?
No, sir, that's one of the things that would be addressed by ordinance.
Okay, but is there?
It's not included in this proposed charter, Judge. It was a little bit too above our pay grade, if you will, to get to that. So we believe how you align those manpower duties.
Well, it does say that the city manager shall direct all department heads, but there's no ordinance or anywhere it says that
Who hires or
there's a
fires.
director of HR.
In departments, it said, that the departments will be appointed by the city council with the recommendation of the city manager. The city manager shall direct all department heads, and it should be punctuation there. And the police department, fire department, growth management department, public services department, public library department, parks and recreation department, the finance department, the utility department, the human resource department.
And that's an ordinance?
No, that's verbatim out of your charter,
Page 8,
page number 8,
5-04.
okay?
Okay.
And that's why the hiring and all was in one version of our charter, but it was discussed, and finally, like Mr. Connor said, it was pulled out so that the council can enact that through ordinance, so that it can be, have flexibility.
Okay, so then we would refer from 5.01 to 5.04 for that information. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, may I interject something?
Madam Clerk?
As far as the departments go, when we're talking about the Parks and Recreation Department, in order, and Wayne and I have talked about this a little bit, in order to differentiate between who takes care of the parks and who takes care of the recreation part of the parks, that may want to be a leisure services department, so that you've got somebody who's over just the games, just that, but the public services department actually takes care of the maintenance. Otherwise, you're gonna have a maintenance crew under parks, and you're gonna have a maintenance crew under public services, and it's all the same thing. So that the way it was set up several years ago, as the parks is, the maintenance of the parks is under public services, but the leisure services department takes care of all the recreational activities, the scheduling, and all that kind of.
Yeah, that's the way it was, and it worked well a few years ago.
So
and
instead
it
of
was-
saying Parks and Recreation, it may just want to be Leisure Services Department, and that takes care of it.
This deal was great. It brought that over to me, what passed. back before about that.
When you're looking at your governmental entities, if you look at the way that the governmental accounting is broken down, it's public services, environmental, leisure services, and culture. The library falls under culture, leisure services falls under the community center, the library, the Parks Recreation Department, but the actual maintenance of the park comes under governmental.
And I think when they were talking about the Parks and Recreation and they wanted them separately, that's what they were talking about, was the recreational services of it, sort of like our old leisure services was. They weren't talking about maintenance and upkeep. But Parks and Recreation was one of the talking points, as you can tell in the minutes, that was on their mind.
So you don't, down the future, 10 years from now, when another council's talking about this, they go, well, the parks is under.
So it is consensus to change this verbiage to Leisure Services Department?
You need one of these, isn't
Yeah, just one of them will do. But all I've got's one.
So, well, let me get this straight. So we're growing our departments, is that?
On page 8, that's the,
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
it was the addition of the Parks and Recreation and the Human Resource Department.
Well, how about the finance department and utility department? Right now, those aren't,
We
Separate.
have a finance,
we don't have department heads at those positions.
Wasn't that leisure services adopted by ordinance?
I thought it was. I don't know how they got out of that one.
I think it was an ordinance.
Okay.
Well, technically, there is a finance director. And a
Director,
utility-
but when you call department now, we're gonna have 3 more department heads that all want department head salaries. So aren't we just growing our government here? I don't know what to say.
It's not up to me, gentlemen. So,
No, looking at this, and maybe I should have caught this sooner. Public Services Department, okay. We gave Public Services Director 2 assistants, one to manage Parks and Recreation. And now we're gonna pull that and make a complete department out of it. It doesn't make sense to me.
maybe
You
there
know,
would
we-
just be,
We employed an assistant to the director in order to manage Parks and Recreation as the authority for that assistant position. Now we want to make it a separate department.
or, well, that was what your committee had said. Is leisure services, if it's covered under a director under public services? If you keep in mind growth management, it has several different divisions of individuality that takes place. In public services, I'm sure they have a series of what they do, and I do know that, there's the roadways and there's the maintenance, and this could be handled simply as a leisure service director under public services. But that's,
We needed, if that's done by ordinance, we're gonna need to change it.
we need to, if you're going to go with that, we really need to pull out the ordinances and verify that. And the others that they, like I say, was Finance Department, Utility Department, and Human Resource Department. Is that not a conglomerate of what is now in one area? You've got a director in finance. I don't know if Loretta's called a supervisor or if she called a director in the utility department, and yet we do not have a human services department. Miss Betsy has to do both of those particular roles at this time. So, is this something that can be compiled and handled by directors? Is it something you want into individual departments? This was what was presented by the committee, so.
Mr. Connor, could you come up, please?
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the city of Crestview is probably around 25,000. That's what we were looking at. You're gonna be 30,000 before you know it. Close to it by the time this charter gets adopted, if it gets, by the time it goes to the public to get voted upon. We're gonna be 30,000. And when it's all said and done, you're looking at Crestview, if we continue our rate of growth, you're gonna be at 40,000 before you realize it. And there was a discussion about, questions about growing government. Is this about growing government? We didn't see it as a growing government. We saw it as a streamlining and meeting the needs of our government and our citizens. A human resources person is needed.
I agree with that.
And also recreation is a big issue with a lot of people. It's kind of like animal control. They'll boil in here in a hurry when your recreation department is not wet T-shirts, things like that. They'll really come in, and recreation is one of those hot button topics. You might not see that as now, but when things go bad with your recreation department, they'll be here. I guarantee you.
Well, we've had them come before the council several times about recreation. Maybe not when y'all were here, but in previous.
And I think that's why we appointed an assistant
And you got-
to cover that. And now we're saying the assistant is not good enough, we need to grow another department. That's all I'm getting at. I don't understand why we're going from an assistant director to another full department.
Well,
It seems like we
actually, you're
broke that
not
apart already to
increasing.
help
I
out.
think you're probably changing the title of that person because
And the pay rate,
you'll have
and the pay rate.
You'll have the clerk's position, but the clerk now oversees those various things in an effort to keep the money act of the financial director under the city council instead of under the city clerk, so that person can report to you and you have a better understanding of your financial activities. The finance director, you never see her hardly ever except at budget time. Then you see the financial director. The clerk is the person that's the department head of all of those. You'll still have a clerk that'll have their duties and responsibilities, but also the financial director, as you look at that flow chart of the chain of command, it comes more to the city council. You have more eyesight over that particular function.
No, I appreciate your input. I'll have to study that a little more myself.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Haynes.
And I understand our concern for this right here. Now, maybe I'm interpreting it incorrectly what they have here. Down the same in that 5-04 department, the city manager shall make recommendations of city council regarding the organization of the city government and prescribe the duties and responsibilities assigned to the various departments. Now, once that person is hired, they might decide that I don't need a financial department. I can assign that under somebody else. It doesn't say we have to create these departments, but it does leave it to the city manager whether to make a recommendation, whether they want to come back to us and say, well, I need a financial department with a director over it. Right now, we're not obligated, from what I'm reading, to have a financial department by title like that.
Well, when you say he's gonna direct the department heads, and you list all the department heads, it indicates those department heads are in existence.
But if you don't
He's
have,
gonna direct them.
but we don't have those departments. That's the only
That's
thing
what
I'm
I'm getting
saying.
at, is I'm
Yeah,
not sure we need 3 new departments.
But it doesn't say we have to create those. That's what maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but I think it's covered there. Maybe legal can give us some advice on that, I don't know.
If you changed your verbiage from shall direct the department heads of the departments of the city.
And you have
Such,
to name
and
them.
then such
Huh?
as
That-
with
that-
names,
Does that cover you?
you wouldn't have to list them out. You could just say departments of the
That
sounds
sounds good
Whatever
to me,
ones we
Mr. President.
determine we need.
Yeah, determine is needed, and
And that's gonna be part of what that city manager, that's his expert,
He
his
or
or
she gonna
hers.
Come back and recommend.
They're gonna bring expertise in management, and they're gonna bring you back and before the council and determine what departments you need and how they need to function, and what's the most efficient way to do that. So I would, if we,
I like that, Mr. President.
Okay.
Don't name departments.
because the one that we're most lacking in and that we're most endangered with is the human resource
HR
department.
If I were city manager, the first thing I'd say is, where's my HR director? I mean,
And
that's the first thing I'd
yeah,
ask for.
that's probably
I agree
what
with
they'll be
that.
doing. So, okay, so we're just going to include it, departments of the
That-
city.
I like that, Mr. President.
Thank
I don't know
you.
about,
Thank you for coming up with it.
Yeah, that was your idea.
Mr. Carl.
Thought it was Teresa's.
Okay, is the last sentence of that paragraph going to remain the same? Because I think it should.
Yes, should
It's-
make, they
it's-
should make
it's-
recommendations concerning the organization of the government and prescribed duty and responsibilities of the various departments. I think
That's
it would
good.
be efficient and essential
That should stay.
that it
Yeah,
stay,
it's-
that it remains.
Okay, all right.
We're getting somewhere, John.
Any other questions or comments?
Is there?
Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Fairclough, because I missed some of that fine print in there. So go ahead there. Okay, end of discussion then, and does it look as though we, well, I think we already decided that. We've reached a consensus that you're going to get with Mr. Hawley and find out what he says about the veto power and make some of the changes we recommended, then bring it back at city council meeting.
And the one from 6 that we were discussing a while ago, about the tide, he's gonna bring also, we're gonna also investigate the
To
tide.
incorporate that from the old.
Incorporate that in
from the
there,
old
yes,
charter.
sir.
I'll see if I can find anything in the election laws about that.
So they do it in some cities.
Okay, what I was looking for is, the rewording of 6.07 council precincts. So we're going to, have once we're determined with the precincts how it'll be, we shall, change that last sentence in order to reflect more of what we come up with, correct? On the precincts. Here it says, we left it as a hanging question there, will be changed as provided herein, which, so we're gonna wait until we have the correct verbiage for that particular line, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Is that it?
Thank you.
No, thank you. This time we take comments from the audience. Any comments? Any topic?
The section that was just being talked about, 607, Teresa can probably find for you the last charter that was proposed 9 or 10 years ago. There was a section in it that dealt with this, and it directed that the council shall appoint like a reapportionment committee at certain timely intervals. Because really, as was been observed by your council members, you're way out of whack between the population in the 3 precincts. There's no, I mean, the one-man, one-vote rule does not exist, other than for the fact that they're voting at large probably overcomes that argument, I
Yeah.
would think. But there was some language that provided for studying and changing the boundary. The way the boundaries are, it's kind of easy, you know. 1 highway, 2 highways make the 3 districts. As far as voter turnout, Mr. Lux, I think, mentioned it, and I know that I've talked with Doug Sims at Auburn Water. They recently did their annual ballot for their members. In fact, Choco also does a mail ballot. And in both cases, unfortunately, the percentage of voter participation is not a whole lot better than we get at an actual poll, other than they save the cost, maybe, of having to hold the poll for them, particularly in a polling place. But 10% out of the 10,000 approximate Auburn Water customers who got an envelope with a ballot, and there was a two-sided page, 8.5 by 11, with the bio of each of the candidates who wanted to be on the ballot or be elected. I think two were going to be elected out of 5 candidates, but they barely got 10% return, and there was a prepaid envelope. All you had to do was mark it, put it in the envelope, stick it in the mailbox. You can't get any easier than that.
Don't you think, Carol, that if we would engage in a good education program like
Well,
Shannon was indicating, that we
You're
could
reading my
increase
next
the
set of
voter
notes here, yeah.
turnout?
I mean, we in the media can certainly help do our part. Now, to start promoting it right now, next month, probably not going to make any
No.
good sense until you know when you're going to have an election date. You know, now the mail-in ballot, I guess, and again, Mr. Lux knows when he can handle what process it can be done. Town hall meetings could be held. I don't know, maybe some of the local organizations. I've looked at different Facebook pages. You can't really depend on the Facebook pages can help promote it, but as I've looked at them and I want to look at voter registration list, a large number of the people saying things on all of the Facebooks, Kenny's and the other one that y'all have got, are not in the city limits and are not registered voters. They think they're in Crestview because they are here. You know, they've got a
Yeah.
Crestview mailing address, but they won't be able to vote.
Yeah.
You know, and they can make all their opinions, well, why doesn't Crestview do this or that? But they're not going to be able to get up here to go to vote for you. But we can certainly do a publicity. Somehow a citizens committee, if there's going to be any promotion, might have to be created within the community who would do it. Or we can get, and I would say that the existing political clubs that exist in our county don't have a whole lot of clout of membership to put on a forum or to do any kind of a thing that can be done, other than what publicity you can get for free. And as you have said, the city cannot spend money, no matter which side you want to take on it. So you're not going to be buying newspaper or radio and that's from advertising from any of us. You're going to have to get a citizens organizations or some of the civic clubs, and possibly within each civic club, you're going to have both sides of the issue there too. But I do think that what Fort Walton did, and is the same idea, is you've got 2 major decisions, basically, as far as 2 positions, and really you're changing the way the mayor does something. So how that can be crafted to get the right questions on the ballot, because Fort Walton did 7 questions. And some of those even, you've not dealt with term limits in this recommendation or things like that, they did. And apparently making sure in their case that the mayor didn't even have to live in the city until they passed that part. But maybe looking at dividing it up into more than one question. Right now, putting it all in one box, you're gonna get the same thing you've got the last 8 or 9 times you've tried.
And we know that.
So if you give it, do this or yes or no, you know, try that. But anyway, I would suggest looking at, there was 2 different things that were almost together in that last charter proposal. One dealt with requiring the council every so many years to appoint a charter review committee. I think any council can do that whenever they want to anyway. But the idea of setting up a fixed time, I think it was like sometime during, just like we do for other reapportionment, after every census, you know, that the city boundaries also should be looked at, and or the number, and that can be done possibly by, if it's written right, can be done by ordinance rather than having to do another charter question. I think that power can be put into a paragraph in the charter that then the council by ordinance can say, okay, we need to have a review committee of the redistricting if it's needed, just like the legislative districts and congressional districts redistricts, the county commission districts and the school board districts are redone every time we have after every 10-year census. So doing something that ties in with that same cycle might make sense.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
Andrew Rensage, 197 Villacrest, and actually the vice chair for the Charter Review Committee. We removed those segments of the charter so that it could be more fluid and that the actual council has
Which segments?
the segments creating precinct review committees, charter review committees. That way, say we need one tomorrow, or do we need it in 5 years, 10 years, 7 years? That way we didn't tie ourselves to a set specific time period, essentially tying the hands or having a committee up and running for an unneeded period of time when would only need to be set for a set period of time.
All right, thank you.
That can be handled by ordinance.
Can't hear you.
The review, committee, that can be handled by ordinance.
Okay. Comments, Ken?
Ken Nielsen, 3162 Applin Road, which is outside the city, but I still feel like I live in the city. I call Crestview my home. Mr. Chairman, I regret to inform you that the comments are the same. They want to know about it all night long, all the dozens and dozens of comments. We've had, I don't know, 1,200 viewers so far. When you're going to fix the roads, when you're going to do more shopping, I want to buy clothes. I'm not saying this as a joke. I mean, just
Yeah,
what we've discussed this before. I'm just letting you know that still, no matter what we talked about tonight, they're watching, they're listening, and they just doesn't sink in
Yeah,
apparently.
This is a workshop for a very specific purpose.
Who knows why?
And that's all we can say. Thank you, though. Any other comments from the audience? Oops, last call.
The only time you have legally reliable changes of population is every 10 years when the new census is done. In between, you're going by the estimates that the states give you for what it's growing based on lots of factors, but the only official one you can really rely on is your every 10-year census report.
Any other comments?
Mr. Whitten, remember, I need to say.
Oh, you want to make an announcement?
Yeah, there has been some mail-outs and a couple of questions. A mail-out went out today in an envelope addressed City of Crestview, advertising the circus this weekend. And I just kind of want to explain that, A, no city money is being spent to send that out. It was requested, it is a circus that is sponsored on a fundraiser for the Crestview Historic Board, which is a committee of the city. The circus requested, as a committee of the city function, to be advertised in the utility bills that went out. We sent it in. Cast Data had an error and did not get it in the last cycle. And they sent it out at their own expense, except for what it would have cost them to go into the water bill, to all the citizens in that, what we call A cycle, which is mainly South Crestview. So if you got one in the mail, it is not a city function. It is a function of a city committee, and there are no city funds being spent to advertise the circus.
Thank you. With that, this meeting is adjourned.